All right, so I tried to wedge these teeth together. So there is a contact, just, no, not quite. It's almost a contact. But see, it's shifted pretty far gingivally, the level of the contact. So it's a big occlusal embrasure. Yeah, a big occlusal embrasure. And so a big gingival embrasure too, so we don't have to go too deep gingivally as far as the ideal prep goes. But you can sort of see a gray shadow underneath the distal marginal ridge there. Okay, so what we're going to do to start this prep, just to do the ideal prep, is we're going to do what we always do. Look along the arch, lean the burr a little bit to the lingual, and cut about this deep. So this tooth structure is a little harder than what you're used to cutting. Try to keep the end of the burr at the same level all the way along here. And we can cut into the distal facial groove, into the lingual groove here, into the buccal groove over here. So that gives us a start as far as the basic occlusal outline is concerned. So you see there's some decay showing up right in there. On the mesial side, we're not going to go too far toward the marginal ridge. Typically, we're not going to do a dovetail in this area because it's not really necessary. We're going to make sure we get this groove exactly in the right place. We're going to make sure we get this groove exactly in the right place. With the 1.5 mm wall height, probably we have the pulpal floor pretty close to where we want. So I'm not seeing any residual enamel at the gingival margin, but I'd like to see the DEJ. So I'm not seeing any residual enamel on the pulpal floor, but I'd like to see the DEJ more clearly on the facial lingual occlusal walls. So let's turn back this way again. I'm going to drop pulpally a little more. Again, keep the burr leaning a little bit lingually. So once we get through the DEJ, we'll see the DEJ on the occlusal walls. And of course, notice I'm pushing the burr away from my eye and coming back toward my eye. But I'm looking horizontally along the arch, so I'm not going to be going deeper pulpally than I really need to. I'm allowing the wall heights to get a little taller than the burr. And now let's see where we are. But again, if we look in a different direction, so a lot of people make the mistake of trying to look vertically downward. If you do, then you're going to lose control of the position of the burr pulpally, and you're going to end up overextending pulpally really easily. So now I can see the DEJ along the lingual side there. Let me get the light a little bit better. And so make sure we don't have that. So, okay. So let's see with the Explorer. So I can see the DEJ just above the pulpal floor right in here, and a little bit over here. So I'm starting to see it it's just right at the DEJ over here. And here you can see the DEJ because the decay is underneath it, right? Okay, so ultimately we're going to have to extend the outline form here. We know that we are, and we don't know what's going to happen, axially or gingivally yet. But we're in pretty good shape as far as most of the occlusal outline is concerned. So I'm going to extend here into the middle of the contact, the way we always do when we're doing an ideal prep. So now, since I'm needing to get very close to the adjacent tooth without hitting it, I'm going to cut right to the middle of the contact at the same level. As I get close to the adjacent tooth, I'm going to just use the end of the burr and nip a little bit like this, a little bit at a time until I get right up against the adjacent tooth. Because the closer I get to the adjacent tooth, the less extra tooth structure I'm going to have, and it's going to be much easier to do the prep. Now, we're going to do the same thing that we always do. Find the facial lingual margins, right? So look parallel to contact, downward at a 45-degree angle. So let's nip along. Until I know I'm going to have some clearance there at the same level of the pulpal floor. Okay, so I'm going to have some clearance on the lingual. So let's go out buccally now. Trial and error, the way we always do, with the burr right next to the adjacent tooth. Now let's see if I've gone far enough facially. Yeah, pretty close. I could go just a little bit more. And then once we find the margins so that we know we're going to have clearance facially and lingually, let's cut in 90-degree angles. And make sure we cut in far enough. Is it 90 degrees? So we look this way. It's getting pretty close to 90. So straighten it out a little bit. And then make a smooth curve to join the isthmus. Start from the margin here, cut straight in. Can't see the angle when we're cutting it, so we cut and then we look in the mirror and see how our angle is coming. It's getting pretty close to 90 degrees. So we get the margin, get the angle, get the length, then make the curve. Find the margin, get the angle, get the length, make the curve to join the isthmus. Okay, so now we can see the DEJ here and here on the facial lingual sides. So, you know, we could smooth this out and everything, but it's not much point in it. We're going to go ahead and go gingerly. Notice that there's no decay in the enamel, right? Mm-hmm. So all the decay is isolated to the dentin, and there's no enamel decay. Now, if any of this enamel is undermined by decay that's in the dentin, then of course that's reason for overextending these margins, but we don't know that it's going to be undermining any of this enamel yet, so we'll just go gingerly with this being the ideal prep. Now I'm going to get a little more clearance lingually. So it looks like it's not quite enough yet, so I'm going to move the margin a little bit lingually. And then recut the angle, get the length, make the curve. Okay, so now I've got some more clearance. It's a little bit obtuse, so let's change it to a 90-degree angle. Again, you can see the DEJ all the way along there. Okay, so let's go gingerly with the 55 burr and see what we're really working with here. So this is just the ideal box. That's all. Okay, so I'm going to put the burr right on top of the DEJ. So we have a feeling we can see the DEJ on part of this pretty easily. But let's put the burr right on top of the DEJ and drill gingerly and cut away from that wall, and the same thing on the facial side. Again, looking the way I am, I know where I am axially. So there's the axial wall. If you look carefully at the gingival floor as we can see it right now, you can see the DEJ right here. So you can see how shiny the enamel is right there, and there's the DEJ. Now, the DEJ doesn't look like it's following the shape of the outside surface of the tooth, so that'll be something that we need to deal with. But let's first of all get rid of all the excess along the facial lingual sides. So again, just the normal 7 steps for going gingivally. So steps 5 and 6, getting rid of the excess along the facial lingual walls. Then get rid of the excess along the middle. That's step 7. So let's see where we are now. So we don't have enough gingival clearance yet at the margin, but then again, I went deeper gingivally right here. So the floor is not flat at this point, so let's get rid of some more of the excess at the facial lingual walls and the gingival. Make sure we don't have any excess down there. I can feel this excess right here. So let's try to get the gingival floor as flat and horizontal as we can, even though we lean the burr lingually when we're doing the occlusal outline. We're going to keep it vertical in the box. Okay, so now the gingival floor is a little flatter, and we still don't have enough gingival clearance though, do we? So the gingival clearance, I could trim a little bit more off. I could smooth it a little bit more to the margin. Again, notice I'm looking so I can see exactly how close I am to the adjacent tooth. So now it's flat all the way to the margin. The clearance is a little less than 1/2 millimeter. So let's go gingivally a little bit more. Now we're going gingivally more to get gingival clearance. A little more gingival clearance. Now, if you think this is enough gingival clearance right now, and for composite, it actually would be, because, you know, typically, clinically, we're going to bevel a composite gingival margin. But here's the problem. So if we just call this the ideal gingival clearance, and we might consider it to be so. So if we look down this wall, let's blow a little dust off. What do we observe on the gingival floor at this point?
Is it a decalcification?
Well, we have decay at the DEJ, right?
Right.
And we have a very strange shape for the axial, don't we? So if I were to go a little deeper axially toward the facial side.
Because it's a little bit shiny there, so it's not very...
Yeah, well, that's how we know it's enamel.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so the light's reflecting back pretty brightly. Okay, so we know it's enamel there, but we know there's decay there because it doesn't get shiny. But here's the thing. We know we're going to have to go deeper gingivally, don't we? Because the gingival enamel is undermined. So we know we're going to have to go deeper gingivally. But we're not going to do it yet. We're going to finish the rest of the prep as much as we can, ideally. So maybe make the pulpal floor a little smoother as it approaches this wall here and this wall over here. Just trying to do the ideal prep as cleanly as we can. I just smoothed out part of the pulpal floor toward the distal. So now we're seeing a little bit more where that decay is. Okay, and so the axial wall position here is pretty reasonable. The axial wall position over here is also pretty reasonable. You can see where the DEJ is on the lingual wall. See that?
Yeah.
But you see there's the enamel has a strange shape. The DEJ has a strange shape.
Is it decay or is it...
No, the enamel actually has a strange shape.
Okay.
So it almost looks like the decay is cutting into the DEJ, but that's not going to happen the way they make these teeth. So we might want to just smooth a little bit more right in here. We don't want to go any deeper axially. We want to make sure the gingival floor is nice and flat, the walls are as well defined as possible. But the DEJ didn't look very natural in that area. Let's see how it looks now. Okay, so yeah, now it's pretty obvious that the enamel's thicker here than it is here. But in any event, we can see the DEJ on the facial side, so we know that we've gone deep enough axially right there. I'm not too concerned about it otherwise, and we're a little bit past the DEJ on the, sorry, that's the lingual side. On the facial side, we're a little bit past the DEJ. Now, the big question now is, okay, is the decay undermining anything that we need to extend? The decay is undermining the occlusal enamel right here, so we'd want to get permission to extend distal lingual, the occlusal outline at the at the distal lingual triangular ridge. It's not obvious that we have any undermining on the facial side here, but at least not on the occlusal level, but we might very well, the facial enamel at the DEJ and the proximal wall might be a little bit undermined. Let's clean that up a little bit. But we don't want to extend beyond ideal. We might clean things up so that we can see better what's going on. But the last thing we want to do is remove decay without permission. Okay? So now that cleaned up the facial quite a bit. So we can see the DEJ. So it doesn't look like the decay is undermining the facial outline. It's only undermining the occlusal part of the lingual outline over here in the distal lingual. Definitely is going to require that we extend deeper axially, and definitely require that we go deeper gingivally, because all that enamel is undermined gingivally. So at this point, we'd ask permission to modify. So we want to modify the occlusal outline on the distal lingual, maybe 0.5 millimeter to get rid of the decay at the DEJ. So again, there's what, why, where, and how much, okay? And then over here, we're going to remove decay at the axial pulpal line angle, about 1 millimeter deep. And then we're going to go gingivally, you know, maybe another millimeter. That wouldn't surprise me. Okay, so the best thing to do is get rid of all the decay on the peripheral walls first. So what they might ask you to do is just ask for decay or ask for modifications that involve the outline form. So that would be the outline form up here, and that would be the outline form gingivally. Once you have the decay free in this area here in the distal lingual, once you have the margin at the gingival free of decay, then all the decay is going to be on the axial, and you just use a round burr to grind that away, and then you're done. Okay, so let's go deeper gingivally. So I'm going to put the burr right at the axial wall here. You want to use a nice sharp burr because you're on the hard dentin. If you get into the, you're on the hard enamel. If you get into the dentin, then, and you're pushing hard because you're on enamel and it slips onto the dentin and you're still pushing hard, it's going to cut pretty deep. So let's go a little deeper axially and then a little deeper gingivally. Then cut away from that wall, do the same thing on the facial side. So this burr is not particularly sharp. So we'd really want to make sure that we use sharp burrs. Okay, so let me get rid of an extra piece that broke off here. Okay, so now we're getting deeper gingivally, but with permission, okay? Mm-hmm. And so right now, the DEJ on the gingival, we're going to clean that axial wall up a little bit more. We're going to make it more vertical and extend axially a little bit more. I want to get the axial wall indented so that we can see the DEJ very clearly on the gingival floor and determine whether we still have any decay there at the DEJ. So I'm going to put the corners in a little deeper axially. Okay, so now it gets interesting. So now I've got the DEJ clearly on the gingival floor, clear of decay. I went a lot deeper gingivally in order to achieve that. There's still, on the facial side, there's still a little step over there which I can clean up. The lingual side looks pretty clear. The DEJ, the lingual proximal looks just fine. The facial probably is going to be fine when we clear it up a little bit. So I'm going to smooth the face wall a little bit right here so I can feel a little step down there. So just use the end of the burr and smooth that out. Match the general part of that wall to the occlusal part of that wall. Okay, I'm going to clean it a little bit more right in here. Okay, so now we've gone far enough gingivally and axially so that there's a nice clean DEJ in the gingival floor. We have clean DEJs on the facial lingual walls. We still have some decay on the occlusal on the distal lingual, so we're going to extend. We had permission to extend 0.5 millimeter there.
Just, is it safe to just ask for 0.5 millimeter initially?
It may be the only safe thing.
Rather than, going for 1.
If it's obvious that it's not going to need more than 0.5 millimeter, then don't ask for 1, or they're going to accuse you of over-treating. So I'm moving this wall maybe 0.5 millimeter. So I want to see the DEJ clear of any decay. Okay, so there's a little bit, but it's all in dentin. It's not touching the DEJ now. But now we see where the decay is. So we might do a little bit more, just right here. And again, if you go 0.5 millimeter and you think that's not enough, ask them for another 0.5 millimeter. Okay, but now, what are we going to do to get rid of the rest here? Now this, we could clean up a little bit more. So the more we can see the DEJ and see exactly where the decay is going, the more we'll be ready to work on the internal form. So right now, all the peripheral walls are free of decay. We've gotten permission to go gingivally, so we've freed up the gingival DEJ of decay. We got permission to extend over here on the distal lingual, so we got that area free of decay. And the axial position is certainly within limits of ideal because it's in dentin, so we have a nice DEJ on the gingival floor, so nobody can complain about that. So the only place where we have decay left is the axial wall, the axial pulpal line angle. So we can take a round burr. Oops. Let me go ahead and. So typically we'd use a slow speed handpiece and a slow speed round burr. But in this case, I just happen to have this high-speed round burr, so I'm just going to turn it slowly.
Do you mind if I take a quick look with, like not in the screen, but actually on the tooth itself?
Yeah, hold on a second. You won't see very much, but let me blow the air off here.
Because it's much different there because of the...
You think so, huh? What you might want to do is come around and sit in front of the patient.
I saw that. I just wanted to see how it's looking like the decay. Okay. Because of the glare, it was looking way too different on the screen.
Oh, because of the shiny enamel?
Yeah, because,
Okay. Yeah, so when you have a headlight that's see your light might do well.
I think it's the same.
Your light's
It's
It's a little bit above the level of the loops. Ideally, your headlight would be between the two lenses.
It should be, yeah.
It should be.
Is like above,
I know, but it should be between them. I can't get them between them because I have a camera between them.
Exactly.
Okay, so anyway, now I'm going to come through here and just slowly grind away. And again, this would typically be done with a slow speed rounder.
Half millimeter extension, right?
Yeah, I've asked for a millimeter actually.
A millimeter this time?
Because we can see how wide it is. We can see how far it goes into the tooth. Yes, I could just measure the width of the decay along the pulpal floor there and coming down the axial wall. Now, so there's a little bit left still right in this area. So this is very soft. I'm just sweeping it up. Okay, and really that's it. Everything's nice and clear. Everything's as close to 90 degrees or close to ideal as we can get it.
Yeah.
Now you would still come through here and use a hand instrument to perfect the 90-degree angle right here. It's a little bit acute, but that's perfectly all right. Even for the exam, if you have it this acute, they won't fail you. But I would still want to have the exit angle a little bit closer to 90, get rid of any hint of undermined enamel. And you have plenty of clearance left you can go, but you don't want to have any hint of a hook. But other than that, and you know, are you going to do a direct pulp or an indirect pulp cap?
Quite possible, yeah. It's pretty close to the...
You think so, huh? Not so clear.
I usually do limelight in real life.
Yeah, it's not really clear that it's all that close to the pulp. I wouldn't make it any more complicated than it has to be by requesting an indirect pulp cap.
Okay.
But, you know, I mean, I don't do an indirect pulp cap unless I see the color of the pulp chamber right here. And then I'll do it. But if you don't see any change of color, then, you know, that's not something you really need to be concerned about. Okay, so, and then angle the gingival floor and so forth, and, you know, everything else we normally do on the ideal preps. So this is what we're looking for. But again, we had 3 different permissions we had to ask, 3 different modifications that we had to ask in order to make this work. Now the good news is we didn't have to go out farther lingually or farther facially, so I'm glad we didn't do that by mistake to begin with. All right, just keeping the ideal prep allows us to see exactly what needs to be done. And of course, if you're not at ideal axially, then you might have gotten rid of all the decay even before you had a chance to ask permission to remove it. So that's how we sort of sneak up on it, a little bit at a time. Okay? Okay, so pulpal floor depth. Okay. It's greater than half a millimeter, less than 3 millimeters in all areas. What does that mean, you think?
Like
because it's interesting in the for the axial wall. Okay.
The depth of axial wall extends beyond the DEJ less than 1 point. I couldn't get that actually.
Well, that's the easy part.
What, like beyond the DEJ less than 1.5
right.
millimeter. So the depth of the axial wall extends. I was thinking like beyond the DEJ in the.
Well, that's exactly what it says. So that should be what you're thinking. So let's take a look at it. Here's the DEJ right here.
Sorry, it's not very clear.
Oh, that's because I got it shifted somehow.
Should we keep it in there if you want?
No, that's okay.
So I reinstalled the INF.
So let's get this down a little bit. Okay. So see the DEJ right here? It's easy to see, right?
Yes.
So they're saying it's acceptable if your axial wall is less than 1.5 millimeters beyond the DEJ. So anything over here is acceptable.
Right, but this one is too deep.
Yeah, so you're a millimeter beyond that. So as long as you have the modification request, you're okay. Now, as far as the occlusal right here, yeah, that's interesting. So as far as the pulpal floor position, they're using wall heights. Instead of extension beyond the DEJ, they're using wall heights. So there should be some relationship. But what do they say about wall heights again?
They're saying the pulpal floor depth.
Now, of course, when they say pulpal floor depth, they're not defining anything, are they? They should be saying, you know, the wall heights, okay, but what do they say?
The pulpal floor depth is more than equal to 0.5 millimeter, but less than equal to 3 millimeters in all
Okay.
areas. There
That's
may be remaining enamel.
That's a pretty big range, isn't it?
Yeah, 3
Yeah.
millimeters.
So, you know, you could have your pulpal
Won't
floor
there be like
even right here.
in real life? Can there be 3 millimeters?
Well, this is 2 millimeters right here, right? So,
Like, won't there be pulp exposure in real life if we go to?
well, it depends on how the patient is.
I mean, older patients, of course, there is extraction, but sorry, the pulp horns are
Mm-hmm.
not that prominent, but so no need of modification there.
Well, why would you want to do modification? Oh, because you think you've already overextended, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But you didn't have any reason for overextending here, right?
There was some soft material. It looked like it could be.
But that only covered this area here on the
No, it
pulpal
was
floor.
in the center too.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that. I remember you had a little bit of debris, but now it's cleaned up a little bit more. But it's interesting. It's still a
But
little
it's still
catchy.
white, right? So that's a
No. We're not looking at the color.
Okay.
What
It's
what I
catchy,
was
right, the
saying is,
softness
yeah,
of
it's
the-
getting a little bit of a catch here.
Mm-hmm.
No, not much. Just a little hint. So it might be a good idea to extend a little farther here. And what burr would you use? Yeah, a round burr.
Slow round burr.
Yeah, and just grind this area away a little bit.
So
Yeah.
ask for modification there.
Yeah,
Or
so
no?
do it.
No, but should I? But they're saying like it's acceptable until 3 millimeters. So should I still ask
okay.
for modification or?
Okay, well, you're pushing your limits as far as the 3 millimeters, I'd say, right here.
Okay.
And if you're doing it in one specific area, I would definitely cover yourself. Okay, so let's ask for permission to extend right here.
So I will say extension in the center of the occlusal groove.
You could say, you could say central fossa, part of the pulpal floor.
Okay. On the
So,
pulpal floor.
so
0.5
let's go through the list. What are the who, where, why, and when? Go ahead.
So on the pulpal floor in the center of the occlusal fossa. Why? Because there is a catch, explorer catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how much? 0.5 millimeters.
Okay. So that would cover making a little hole right there. Okay. Now you've already gone too deep axially, but how would you ask to?
So what will be? There is a. So there was a decay on the axial wall.
Okay.
No,
So
what is like there is a. So what exactly are we writing?
what? Okay. What you want to overextend axially?
Overextend axially. Okay.
I gotta go.
Overextend axially. Where on the
Well, I mean, they don't have
axial wall?
these all in one.
Well, that would have to be the case. Now, but it might be the center of the axial wall, or it could be the axial wall toward the facial. Depends where the decay is seen.
The center of axial wall?
Sure.
Dangling, and
Center
then
of axial wall.
if you get used to it,
Why? Because there is a decay.
Mm-hmm.
And how much? Maybe 1 millimeters, right?
Yeah, so right now,
1 millimeter.
so 1.5 millimeters beyond ideal is right here. So you're about 1 millimeter past that.
excellent.
So
Yeah, so I'd want to get the millimeter.
1 millimeter. Okay.
And it is still a little tacky on the axial wall. See this?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could do even more than you have with the round burr just in the center right here.
Okay.
So you got several different areas.
So one more thing, if
Mhm.
you could please help clarify. So now they're asking about the external cavo surface margin meets enamel at 90 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
which I failed it.
Well,
That-
if it's
like,
acute,
like-
if it's obviously acute, then you fail. If it's a little bit obtuse, you should still be okay. Obviously, for composite, really, it's
but they're
preferred.
specifying like 90 degrees.
I know they
so
are.
it's like,
So, you know, get close to it, but don't take a chance that it's going to be acute at all.
so is it obtuse now? Or
You are, well, let's take a look. So 90 degrees would probably be about like this. So it's awfully close to obtuse, isn't it? I mean, it's a little bit obtuse. It's very close to 90. I wouldn't worry about that at all. I mean, clinically, it's beautiful. Okay, so your exit angle here. So the exit angle is a little different at the top of the wall than it is at the bottom. You've still got a little tendency to hook at the top. So again, use a hand instrument, come down that margin, make sure you don't have any hook. But anyway, you're fine here. Your clearances are okay. A little bit much over here.
so is that exit angle on that is the buckle? So is it 90 degrees?
That's what we just finished talking about. We just finished talking about that.
It's like there is a hook.
Yeah. So that would be a little bit of undermined enamel there. Okay. So now fix it. Use a hand instrument and just come down that margin until you know that it's 90 degrees or slightly obtuse. It's fine. Okay, and then gingivally, you're probably not that much overextended compared to what they're looking for.
They're asking like 1 millimeter.
Yeah, but you see, you have.
A little bit more. Yeah.
One of the problems is at the gingival area, you still have a little bit of undermined enamel down here.
So take a round burr.
So I'd probably get permission to extend gingivally a little farther.
Okay.
So gingival floor, overextension,
so what it will be
caries,
extension,
you know, 0.5 millimeter.
gingival floor.
And again, keep the burr vertical as much as you can. When you start leaning the burr lingually, your pulpal floor rises toward the facial. So keep the burr vertical as much as you can when you're doing this prep. Okay. So anyway, that's a lot of the issue right now. You might just take a number 2 round burr, touch this, take a number 2 round burr, touch the middle of the axial wall right there, because that was clearly still some affected dentin there. Yeah, now it's getting a little bit harder on the inside, so it wasn't quite there enough yet. Okay, could you go get mine?
Yeah, I actually saw yours as well, and it looks so nice. It's like conservative stuff.
One thing I didn't do is probe the axial with a sharp explorer.
I don't know how you make it so conservatively. It's like this is where it should be.
Yeah, so this is a little bit tacky. See that? There's penetration there. So even though the color is okay, there's still penetration. So I would go farther axially than I did yesterday. And even up here. So yeah, the emphasis is not just getting rid of that gray colored soft material, but making sure that you don't have penetration and catching of the explorer in these areas. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky, so I'd have to use that round burr in there a little bit more and get that area taken care of. So this is close right here. Is probably I just touch that, don't even need to get permission to extend in that area. Probably just do a little bit right here too. But definitely axially is going to be an issue. And check at the gingival CEJ. So, you know, I'd probably want to smooth this out a little bit more gingivally. Yeah, because there's still a little bit of a tendency to have decay undermining the enamel down there gingivally. So I'd just take the burr, take the 55 burr, come back in and flatten that floor, go gingivally a little bit more right there. Round burr, you know, at least a 0.5 millimeter here, maybe even 1 millimeter. So it's penetrating pretty significantly. Penetrating at least a 0.5 millimeter there. Okay, so got the idea on those?
Yeah.